Just about a year ago, Scott Snyder returned to DC with All In launching his Absolute Universe, hot sales, fans buzzing, retailers fired up. Meanwhile, the DC Prime Universe, not so much. The real Superman's taking a backseat while the Absolute Superman steals the spotlight. Nobody's talking about the Justice League. Earth Prime's become the opening act for its darker replacement. Now, DC hands Snyder the keys with DCKO #1, a cosmic tournament to save reality itself. Darkseid's pulling the strings, and Superman's fighting to prove the main universe still matters. Can Scott Snyder make Earth Prime matter again? Or has the Absolute Universe already won? DCKO has a lot riding on it. Now let's see if it delivers. But first, I do want to say thank you very much to the sponsor of the channel in today's video, the 616 Comics. If you haven't checked them out, definitely hit up their website or app, the #1 producer retail in the entire industry, and you can get 10% off their exclusive retailer covers using the code in the video description. I will start out by talking about the art by Javi Fernández, who was working on Batman and Robin before he got on this project. And I will definitely give him credit. This book, when the action starts, is absolutely epic in scope. It has a very cinematic energy, flavor to it. He's changing camera angles, keeping the book exciting to look at. We get really big, wide panels during all the chaos, claustrophobic little grids during the tension, really amping everything up during the story. But what really stands out is just some of the risk-taking on some of the layouts, to where a lot of the pages, especially in the action, don't read like a typical comic book page. But Fernandez, as an artist, really guides your eyes through the chaos and everything going in the background, so you can really see what's going on with Superman and some of the other heroes as it's going on. And it made it very, very exciting. I love the fact that he took so many risks, and I could definitely see DCKO, if he continues doing this kind of very exciting art, becoming a star-making book for Fernandez moving forward. There's lots of other effects going on here, especially with the lettering. And a lot of times it works very well, although there are some panels with our main narrator where there's almost speed lines in the back of the black narration boxes with white lettering on top of it that made some of the lettering seem blurry at times. And I will say the colorist did a great job conveying the different levels of the arena as we're getting this kind of descent theme as they're going towards the center of the earth. And you can definitely tell just by the colors what setting you are in within the comic book itself. So I think the art is actually really, really good. There's a few things that don't work, but it's very dynamic. It's exciting, and I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think Javi Fernandez did a great job. When we get into the story from Scott Snyder, it starts out with Bruce, Diana, and Clark playing board games. And the next thing you know, this King Omega version of Darkseid arrives, destroying everybody. And then the Time Trapper and the Quorum basically rewind time to give them a heads up of what's going on here, laying out how our world is basically formed from alpha energy, and now there's this other world based on omega energy. And Darkseid has started accumulating all this power now that he's been reborn, and he's coming for Earth Prime. It explains how and why Apocalypse and the Omega Energy chose Darkseid to be its champion, and how he's getting more and more powerful every single day, leading up to this inevitable event that's going to happen in 7 days. But I will put this out there with a lot of what happens, especially in the first 20 or so pages of this book. It's much better to just kind of go along with it, because when you do start thinking about some of these ideas and concepts that are driving the story forward, a lot of them do tend to fall apart. For example, we're told this other universe is created on Omega energy, our universe is created on Alpha energy, but all of a sudden there's a Heart of Apocalypse in the center of Earth. How could there be a Heart of Apocalypse on the center of our Earth when our Earth is founded and runs on Alpha energy? But Time Trapper, Grodd, Booster Gold, the Quorum are suggesting that they take the New 52 route, or Flashpoint, go back in time, change something, and restart the universe. Nobody really thinks that would be a good idea, although if you think about it, it's the best idea once they actually talk about their plan to thwart Darkseid and the fact that he's coming to Earth as King Omega to claim our realm as his as well. The theoretical plan presented is that they can travel to the center of the Earth, to the Heart of Apocalypse itself, shoot it with Omega energy, which Booster Gold is full of, which will stop the heart, and then in theory, break the connection between Darkseid and the Heart of Apocalypse on Earth. But the person that will become the champion, or the people that join this tournament that will form out of it, must be fueled by their own lust for conquest. But they decide that that would be the better plan because it won't reset the universe and they won't forget the lives that they've lived. then going back and creating a new Flashpoint by, I don't know, just changing one simple event 2 weeks prior and hoping that maybe things get better. So they decide this is the plan. Clark is not with it. And I will give him this. Once they start presenting these really crazy, insane ideas that nobody in the DC universe, I think, would ever go along with, Superman is the one saying, yeah, this is a really bad idea. What happens to the superhero that wins that has to be fueled by conquest? Obviously, they're going to end up taking over the world. Although I will give Scott Snyder this, he does put in the fix action for how they're going to get out of all of this. Basically, once the new King Omega is crowned, in theory, and is powered up enough to face this new King Omega version of Darkseid and wins, you can create and reshape the universe as you choose. And then they take 7 days to prep before they go to the center of the earth and restart the Heart of Apocalypse, even though it's strongly implied that Apocalypse is only getting stronger every minute that he's out there. But they did need to imprison all the villains in the DC universe in the Phantom Zone, which felt very anti-heroic. And even if they were willing to do that, why didn't they do that, I don't know, 50 years ago and save so many thousands of lives before that? Then they decided to get their weapons. And as I said earlier, the less you think about the details of how this plan works and how they came to it, the better. But as far as the characterization, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. The plan doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's better alternatives out there, but at least Superman is acting in character. Some of the heroes are asking good questions, and we do know how and why Darkseid has become the King Omega. Now, they do need to go to the center of the Earth to restart the Heart of Apocalypse. When Time Trapper is talking about it, it's all theoretically. Yeah, it might be chaos. We're not sure. There should be a tournament to crown a champion. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that this tournament is so well organized, but I think like 100 DC heroes have showed up. It was fun seeing the heroes arrive when you got Swamp Thing with like a sword and shield, and you get to see Detective Chimp with like a big battle axe and stuff like that. So I did enjoy it. There's a lot of fan service. That's why I say you just have to turn off your brain. Don't think about what you just bought into it and just buy in. And then it gets really fun. Once you get through those first 20 pages, which are mostly exposition and very, very Scott Snyder in nature as far as the scope of everything has to be world ending. It's revealed there are a limited amount of slots in the tournament, and they just have to traverse through the arena, fight all the demons, miss the traps, and make it through the corridor. Which basically sets us up for the big moment where all hell breaks loose and Javi Fernández is able to really let loose with the art. All these massive events and heroes falling and heroes surviving and heroes making it, all trying to go for this gate to see who's going to vie to become the new King Omega of our Earth. And while all the other heroes are doing everything they can and kind of turning on each other and making a beeline for this gate, Superman realizes that he's holding himself back, making sure that all the other heroes are as safe as they can be, not really taking into account that he is the best hope of survival for the entire DC Prime universe. He's the one that needs to win, and probably the only hero outside of Diana that, even if he becomes King Omega, probably won't be fully corrupted and potentially can come back and maybe save the universe. Eventually, he does come to his senses. And right around that time, it is revealed what we knew had to happen. The villains themselves could not be contained in the Phantom Zone. How they got out of there, not exactly explained. I imagine at some point it will be revealed that Darkseid is the one that let him out. Although that's another thing that's very confusing. Darkseid is basically presented as omnipotent and being able to conquer worlds at the exact same time because he's so powerful. Why is he even letting any of this stuff happen? Because Scott Snyder literally powered him up to such a degree that it's off the charts. But besides that, the villains do arrive, and some of them are able to make it through the gate and enter the tournament itself. Thankfully, Superman does finally make it through the gate, and I believe he's the last entrant. They did lie to us, though. I will point that out. We have the big bracket with all the people that are in there. One of the major heroes that's on the bracket never makes it through the tournament, and DC Comics certainly lied to us. There's also another reveal at the end, and it's a very ominous warning that while we believe Darkseid might be safely contained in the Absolute Universe before he travels over here, he is going to play a much more active role in the DCKO tournament than we know, and there's a big secret out there. You need to read the comic book to find out what it is for yourself, but he's going to play a much different role in this tournament than I had originally thought. As far as the plot goes, yes, there's a lot of contrivances, there's a lot of things that don't make sense, but this is blockbuster comic book storytelling. I'll give the plot like a 4 out of 5 because there is a lot of fun to be had. The stakes have been raised through the roof. The tournament itself is explained. Some of the rules, although they don't all seem like hard, fast rules, and certainly everything is set up moving forward for DCKO after the very first issue. So I enjoy DCKO #1. I don't think it's a perfect comic. It's nowhere close to a perfect comic book, but it's fun. It's epic. There's some spectacular moments in there. There's a lot of fan service to enjoy. I'll give it like a 7.5 out of 10 overall. I'll recommend it, but it's not like the highest recommendation in the history of the world. But with what's laid out here by the end, I imagine these scores could definitely go up because the stage is set for a lot of fun. Now, the ominous cloud still sits out there that this is a Scott Snyder book, and Scott Snyder always wants to outdo himself and takes everything to such cosmic levels that he does make them too dense or stupid by the end. And that is definitely an enormous concern after reading DCKO #1. There are a lot of Scott Snyder isms in here when it comes to the storytelling stuff of his that I personally don't like. But for now, I enjoyed it enough to recommend it. I think people will be coming back and enjoying the DCKO event. I think they're going to be interested in the fights. And this could be the shot in the arm that DC Comics Prime Universe needed. I imagine at some point the Absolute Universe is going to have to come into play in this, but it certainly hasn't happened yet. Now, I did mention at the beginning that the Absolute Universe had kind of sucked the wind out of the sails of the Prime Universe and is certainly dominating the in-continuity universe that DC Comics has in sales. I don't think this is anything that anyone really saw coming. You assume the rising tide raises all ships, but that has not been the case. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should watch my video. The DC sales collapse, nobody saw coming. This was really good stuff right here for you right now. I do appreciate the time. And remember to keep thinking critical.